Welcome to 3x Star Show. Today we have an amazing guest who is joining us from Australia, who is a world-class leader who has started many movements like Successful Man and Magnifying People's Life and all. He is in a mission to enable ambitious people to be more, do more, and have more. He is an expert in wealth, influence, and success, and a renowned thought leader and entrepreneur and the founder of Successful Mail. And his contents has been viewed more than 1 million, 100 million peoples in social media. And he has been featured in Forbes, CNN, Money Magazine, and many mainstream publications and media. He's also an ambassador of International Men's Day, and he is one of the top 50 icons, emerging icons in education, and one of the 50 top influencers in LinkedIn. And moreover, everything, he's a mentor who can see the soul of mentees and unleash the superpower. And fortunately, I'm one of his mentee, and I'm welcoming my mentor, Mr. Ron Malhotra, to this show. Thanks, Ron, for joining this show.
Samesh, thank you so much for the warm welcome. And yes, it's been a great pleasure to see you grow. So thank you very much for starting this podcast and inviting me on.
Sure. Ron, I have introduced whatever it was known to me. And of course, for the betterment of better, understanding of the viewers, can I have some small introduction about your past from the where you were starting? It will be helpful, I feel,
Yes,
because the topic which we are discussing is that. That's why.
yes, of course, of course. Look, my technical background is actually in financial services. I've spent over 22 years in the area of financial services, and my background is really in the area of money. And I started my first business by building my own wealth management practice, and then subsequently I went into other businesses in training as well as business advisory. Really, in my heart, I'm a teacher. A lot of people would say I'm an entrepreneur. I think I feel like I'm a teacher by spirit. I'm more an entrepreneur by mind. I've had to learn entrepreneurial skills. I think there are certainly a lot of entrepreneurs that are entrepreneurs by spirit, whereas for me, entrepreneurship has not been a very natural growth journey. But I do love business, and I love learning about business. And I think for me, a big part of what I do is to help people demystify the topic of money and wealth, simply because very few people understand it and very few people have been able to master it. And I've been fortunate and blessed enough that because I've had more than 2 decades of experience in this area, I am able to share very powerful insights around money and wealth, which I've been talking about for a number of years, and it always amazes me how little people understand about money and wealth. So I suppose I'm in a bit of a mission to improve the level of understanding around money and wealth, so that people can achieve a high level of financial abundance.
Absolutely great. So here, that why I was asking about the past journey, because here I wanted to make a conversation on wealth part, because majority of the people are suffering. This is a practical issue which I have seen in my when I was working in corporate. Now I left, but still this is a consistent and very big issue. So when it comes to salaried people, most of the people's salary is over by 10th or 15th, and it is an exaggerated figure. Most of the time it is before that, and I was one of them. And what will be your advice to them, and from where they can start something?
Look, the standard conventional advice that is given to people who have more month left than money, meaning that they run out of money before the month finishes, is the standard advice to people like that is to reduce their expenses. Okay, so if you go to a financial expert, the first thing they'll say is, look, you don't make enough money to support your expenses. You need to reduce your expenses. That has been the conventional advice for so many years. But very few people talk about the fact that, why can't you just increase your income? Okay. And over the last few years, this piece of advice is becoming more prominent, that, look, because you can only reduce your expenses up to a certain point. The fact is that the cost of living continues to rise. The cost of housing, the cost of educating the kids, the cost of groceries, the cost is always rising, right? The cost of bills, it never seems to go backwards. It always seems to increase.
Yes.
So when we advise people to reduce their expenditure, yes, there is some wisdom in that, but a lot of people are at that point where they can't reduce their expenditure. So then the advice needs to be to increase your income, which sounds like a very logical thing. Yet that is the last thing people would ever think of. Why? Because in most people's minds, their income is something that is determined externally to them. And it's something that they feel they have no control over, and it's not something that they can influence. Because majority of people have a very fixed mindset around income, it never occurs to them that the amount of income that we make is a byproduct of the mastery that we have, the complexity of the problem that we solve, and the difficulty in replacing us because of our work ethic, as well as the ability to promote ourselves. And what people don't understand is that the four factors that I've just mentioned, they're all very much within the control of the individual, which means that these four factors we can influence. And even if we can't influence that within the company or the team that we work in, we can influence those factors in various industries and even within the marketplace. But this is the last thing that people think about. And unfortunately, what happens is when people have been indoctrinated into believing that the income is determined by their employer and there is nothing they can do about it, unfortunately, they don't even try. So the first thing we do is we challenge people into saying, look, you understand that your income that you generate is a byproduct of the factors that I've just mentioned. So what are you doing about it? Right? And because you can control those things, you can achieve mastery, you can upskill yourself to solve a complex problem, you can make yourself irreplaceable through a positive disposition and a tremendous work ethic, and you can learn how to persuade others and position and package your brand and your services in such a way that makes you attractive and compelling in the marketplace. The question is, have you realized this? And the question is, are you doing anything about it? So that will be the first step. Is if you have no room to reduce your expenses further, because the monthly salary only comes in once or twice a month, but we are spending money every day. We spend money about 5 to 6 times a day. So if you look at that over a period of month, we have about 150 to 200 expenditures a month, but we only get paid twice. So we have to start to realize that having a fixed single source of income has become a big risk. And we have to really start thinking how we can influence our income, either where we work now or by building another set of income or multiple sources of income so that cash flow issues are avoided.
So yes, definitely for this, a tough mindset is required for doing all this. I think something somewhere people should start, because people are really stuck. It is beyond what I am explaining it. They cannot even understand that how they will be able to start from, at least to start from where they can start. I mean,
Well, I mean, and when we say, it requires a tough mindset, you're right. But the thing is, what we have to understand is that before the Industrial Revolution and before the information age, which is before factories came out and before corporations emerged, everybody was an entrepreneur. That was actually normal. So you would go out there, you would have to produce something, you'd have to build something, you'd have to create something
yes,
for you to make a living. Then, as factories and corporations emerged, a level of complacency set in. People felt that by merit, because of education or experience, or simply because of labor, they should get paid well. Whereas in the past, it was never labor that got paid well, it was production that got paid well. So
okay,
you can do a lot of labor and still not produce. Okay. And so one of the things that, and there is our thinking has really not evolved. People who have an expectation that because they have a degree or they have some experience or they have some qualifications, that they deserve a high paid job. Well, in an ideal world, yes, but our world is not ideal. And so we have to really wake up to the fact that what we see as a characteristic of a tough mindset is actually not that. It's just that we have become, in a sense, quite weak in our mentality, that we don't want to strive anymore. We don't want to conceive of possibilities outside the square. And so, in a way, people have to start waking up and start to realize that the possibilities that they perceive around them are not all the possibilities that are available around them. Because now, especially with the internet and social media, the world of opportunity has really opened up to people. But why a lot of people are still not able to exploit those opportunities is because they're not trained mentally and from a skills perspective to be able to exploit those opportunities. So, a big part of what we do is to wake people up to say, look, in this new age economy, where we've had more opportunities than ever before to have a diverse set of incomes, for you to be able to invest and create wealth, for you to be able to start businesses with minimal risk and minimal capital. The question is, even though all of these opportunities are available and accessible to you, you're not going to be able to exploit and maximize these opportunities simply because your mind, number one, is not trained to identify those opportunities. And secondly, you have not been developing the skill set that will allow you to maximize those opportunities. So even when people make the transition, they realize how behind they are, because for the last 10 years, if you have not been proactively upskilling yourself personally, professionally, and commercially, and also financially, you're going to find that the world has changed a lot. And I think that's exactly what's happening. A lot of people are just have realized that they're stuck and they're afraid, so they will not make the transition, and they're going to try and hang on to what they've already got. Some people will reluctantly make the transition, but they will find that even when they make the transition, that they're so far behind with their skill set and mindset that they have to do a lot of work to catch up. And some people will be able to make the transition because they'll put everything into making that transition successful.
Yes, yes.
So, but the fact is, we don't really have a choice. The world is changing.
Absolutely.
Either you change with it willingly, or you'll be forced to change.
First.
But either way, I think the change is here at our doorstep. And unfortunately, a lot of people are not equipped to be able to handle this change.
Correct, correct. So here, thanks, Ron. This is really answered. But here, one another concept is that there are lot many informations available how to divide the total income for a better financial stability. So, what will be your suggestion as a wealth specialist? Like, how can we divide our total
Yeah.
income?
Look, at the moment, if you look at how people divide their income, so after the taxes have been paid, there are people divide their income into debt repayments. So that could be personal debt, that could be car debt, that could be debt associated with the home. So that's the second expense. And the third is living expenses. And then fourth is lifestyle expenses. So this is how typically most people, I would probably say, who are on average incomes, depending on the country that you live in, and people who are classified to be in the middle class, they would have the tax expenses, they would have the debt repayments, they would have living expenses and lifestyle expenses. And in a lot of cases, they will be spending excessively on living and lifestyle. Living is not something that they can control because living expenses are what they are.
Yes.
You don't have a lot of ability to influence that. Lifestyle expenses, simply because of the sheer amount of choices that we have with entertainment, consumerism. There is people are spending a lot of money on lifestyle if they have it. But certainly what you'll find is the tax is unavoidable. If they get into the wrong type of debt, they can actually have a big portion of their income being allocated towards debt repayments. And then, of course, the rest of the money is being allocated to living and lifestyle expenses with absolutely no provision for investments.
Correct.
Okay. So what percentage you should invest will depend on what you want at the end. How financially successful do you want to be? You don't need to invest a lot of money to become successful in 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. But you need to invest some. Now, the younger you are, the more you have the luxury of being able to only invest a small percentage of your income. But the older you get, the more you have to allocate towards investing if you don't want to rely on your family members when you retire. So as a general rule of thumb, I would say that if you're in your 20s, you need to have enough cash flow coming in through your income that after your tax, debt repayments, living and lifestyle expenses, that you have at least 10 to 12% of your income that you can invest in high quality investments annually.
Okay.
However, if you're in your 30s, I would be increasing that percentage to 15%. And if you're getting into your mid, late 30s or 40s, I would probably say about 20%.
Yes.
Okay. So the question then becomes, well, people say, but I don't have even a little bit of money to invest. Well,
Absolutely.
if that is your problem, then you clearly have a skills problem because you have not rectified the income problem. So you've got to first fix the skill so that you can fix the income, so that you can derive the cash flow to then invest for the future. If you don't realize what the cause of the problem is, you're not going to fix the cause of the problem, and the problem continues. Unfortunately, it gets worse with age because now you're further and further and further behind. And now, for you to achieve a reasonable outcome for your retirement, now because you have to play catch up, you have to take excessive risk, which you don't want to do. So the best thing is always to start early. But if have you left it a little bit late? Maybe you're in your 30s or you're in your 40s. What you need to do is you need to fix the skill problem, which will solve the income problem, which will solve the cash flow problem, because it's the cash flow that you need initially that you can invest for future investments. So I would probably say, look, and the other thing is your debt repayments. Your debt repayments, as a general rule, when we speak to our clients, we would say to clients, look, whatever your household income is, so if you're husband and wife together, you make, let's just say, I'm just going to use dollars here, but you can do the conversion in your own currency. But let's just say you husband and wife make $100,000 each. So they're bringing in $200,000. If they're in their 20s or 30s, the amount of debt that they have for their home, because most people are not going to be able to buy their home outright. Most people are going to need to borrow money to buy their first house.
Yes.
What we suggest is that the level of debt that you take out for your first home should not be more than 2.5 times the annual household income. So if the annual household income is, say, 200,000, your total debt can be 450,000 maximum.
Yes.
A lot of the times what we also see is there are people who are making a lot of income, but they still have no money to invest. The reason is because they've stretched themselves on lifestyle and they have taken on too much debt. So a good percentage of their income is being allocated to debt repayments, leaving no money to invest for the future.
Future.
Okay. So there are some guidelines. So if you're in your 20s, invest 12% of your income. If you're in your 30s, invest 15%. If you're in your 40s, invest 20% of your annual income into investments. But to be able to save those amounts, you also need to keep an eye on how much money is going towards debt repayments. And so the total debt amount that you should have should not exceed 2.5 times your household income. But I'm only talking about debt that relates to buying a house. Ideally, you want to avoid debt, personal debt. You don't want to borrow money to buy a television or electronic goods or furniture, because then the problem is you are buying things that are going to depreciate in value very, very quickly.
Correct.
Okay. So again, if you can't afford to buy furniture and electronics outright with your own money, and you need to borrow money to do those things, again, that is indicative of the fact that your income is not strong enough. And that is indicative of the fact that your skills are not really valued in the marketplace. And this is a very difficult pill for people to swallow, because a lot of people will just say, I don't make enough money. And that's the end of that statement. But it's not. Why don't you make enough money?
Yes.
That's the question. And most people will never ask themselves that question because they don't want to challenge themselves. And by not challenging themselves, they remain stuck in that position because they're not prepared to open their mind up to the possibilities. And that's where the problem starts. And which is why I always say that your financial issues that people are facing have less to do with the economy and the government and the employer, and more to do with how the person thinks.
Fantastic. There is nothing to say. It has been completely covered, this one. But Ron, here, one more thing. Actually, majority of the people, it is not that people don't have the desire or anything. They are completely badly desired towards wealth creation or making money. But and also in the books, many books has been told lack of money is an illusion. There is an abundance in nature. So why the people are not able to access that particular thing? people used to say that having a good mindset or desire will take them there. What is that lacking factor in between that?
Look, desire is certainly a first step, and I would probably say, Sumesh, that some people don't even have the desire. Okay, but
Okay.
let's just talk about the people who do have the desire, and the
Yes.
question then becomes, okay, we understand that people who don't have a burning desire, we can understand why they're not financially successful. But what about those who do have a burning desire? Why are they not financially successful?
Yes.
Well, let's talk about desire. Desire has to be channeled. That's the first thing, right? So if you take all this electricity
Mm.
and you allow that electricity to dissipate in 100 different directions, the
Yes.
electricity loses its power. And it's the same thing with desire. Desire has to be channeled
Okay.
towards a focused pathway. It can't be dissipating in 100 different directions. So a lot of people have desire, but they don't have focus. So that's
Yes.
the first issue. The second thing is desire can sometimes produce the wrong type of energy, and it can produce what we call a desperate need based energy. So I'll give you an example, Sumesh. So imagine that there is a woman that you and I both want to marry. Okay, let's just say she's an attractive woman. And I approach this woman and I say, I need you. I need somebody to wash my clothes. I need somebody to do my cooking. I need somebody to clean my house. Okay. So I'm telling this woman, I desire her, but I'm telling her I need her.
Mm.
Okay. And I'm demonstrating my desperation. I'm saying, I need somebody to cook for me, clean for me, to keep my house. I need you. Will you marry me?
Okay.
And then you approach the same woman and you say, I value you, I love you, and I appreciate you. Okay.
Okay.
Both of us desire the same woman. Who do you think she'll want to marry?
Yeah. The second one.
Correct. She'll want to marry you
Yes.
because even though you and I have the desire for this woman,
Yes.
she will go for the person,
Person.
not the person who needs her and is desperate for her. She will go to the person who appreciates her values and
Right.
loves her.
Yes.
Now, you think about that in the context of money. If money was indeed a beautiful woman, ask yourself what is the level of the type of energy that most people bring?
Okay.
Is it I love money, I value money, I appreciate money, or I am desperately in need of money?
Okay.
So if money had that energy, which it does, money is going to be attracted to those who are giving out the right type of energy, not the wrong type of energy. So money is automatically repelled, just like people are repelled by people who are needy and desperate. Money is repelled by people who are needy and desperate. Okay. So
Yes.
desire is a very important prerequisite, but it has to be the right type of desire that
Yes.
attracts money. The
Okay.
other thing is a lot of people who want the money,
Hmm.
if you actually observe their behavior, what you will find is they don't value the money. They value what they can spend the money to get. So think about this, right?
Yeah.
So most people want money to do what? To spend it.
Spend it. Yes.
Yeah. So what that means is, say you get somebody who really values um, electronics,
Yeah.
and you give them the money. What are they going to do? Are they going to keep the money? No. What they will do is, because they value the electronics more than the money, they will go to an electronics store and they will give them their money and they'll get the electronics in return.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So what happens is a lot of people who end up wanting money don't actually value money. They value what the money will bring them.
Yes. 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 Okay.
But the
But
people who end up keeping the money
mhm.
and growing the money are the people who actually value the money. They value the growth of that money.
Okay.
So you can have two people who have the same energy towards money,
Mhm.
and uh, they both want money. They have the same amount of desire, but the person who will keep and grow the money is
Mhm.
the person who values the money, not what the money buys.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Very important distinction. Okay, so and that's the other thing as well. A lot of people want the money because they want to travel. They want the money because they want the lifestyle.
Yes.
But the people who end up keeping the money and growing the money are the people who are actually inspired by the activity of wealth creation, which
Yes.
means the making, keeping, and growing the money is a reward in itself. Whereas a lot of people, the reward is not the money. The reward is what they can exchange the money for.
Mixing the money. Yes, yes, yes. So by this time itself, most of the viewers definitely they would have got what this is going on completely money, money, money. Because earlier I had this one. There is a negative, high level of negative influence, negative association of money concept is there in the society. So how badly it has affected and how it can be eliminated to some extent, not completely, but at least what can be done for to some extent.
Well, there is a lot of hatred, not just around money. There's a secret hatred around people who have money as well. I
Okay.
mean, how easily do we feel empathy for poor people, but how easily do we feel empathy for rich people? We don't feel any empathy for rich people.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Because if a rich person, if a homeless person, dies under tragic circumstances, a lot more people will feel sorry for that person compared to somebody rich. So we don't have the heart for rich people. We have the heart for poor people, which means that we place more positive associations with poverty than we do with wealth.
Correct.
Let's not also forget that throughout our entire conditioning, and you may have heard me talk about this, look at our movies. You turn on any sort of Hollywood or
Yes,
Bollywood
yes,
movie,
yes.
and what you will find is a stereotypical typecasting where they will take the good person in the movie, the good guy, and the good guy never really cares about money and is financially irresponsible. And then the bad guy is usually the one who's wealthy,
Yes, always.
right?
Yes.
So imagine as a child, you're a 5-year-old child, you're 6-year-old child, you're watching this movie with your parents, and you movie after movie after movie, you see that the good guy never has money. Not only that, never cares about money, meaning the good guy is always financially
Financial.
irresponsible.
Yes, yes.
And then the bad guy always has the money.
Mm.
And what we do is then the character that we depict in that rich guy is of greed and exploitation and lack of empathy and lack of compassion. So
Correct.
because as we're growing up, we don't have the ability to compute what's going on. All of these ideas and feelings are getting inside of your head. And unconsciously, we start to create negative associations with the acquisition of wealth. And we start to create positive associations with irresponsible money habits and poverty.
Yes.
And if you understand our own psychological makeup, how we work as human beings is that because the purpose of our mind is to keep us in survival,
Mm.
well, it doesn't really want us to do things that will make us feel bad about ourselves. So, what does it do? It
Mm.
makes us inattentively blind to money and wealth creation opportunities. And it engages in a lot of attaching of honor to poverty and creating positive associations around struggle, where we always feel bad for the person who doesn't have money. We always have a heart for homeless people. We really care about them. We really think they're good people. But then the rich people, we immediately think that they're guilty before they're innocent.
Yes, yes,
So the
yes.
judgment starts. And the same people who will say, oh, don't judge the poor person,
Mm.
feels completely entitled to make
Yeah.
a judgment against the rich person. So there is a double standard that shows up in their
Yes.
personality and behaviors.
Correct.
So this is why the psychology of money and wealth is so important for people to understand, because you can, even if you are highly skilled and you know how to make an income or high income, if you have the wrong mindset and wrong beliefs and wrong value associations with money and wealth, you
Yes.
are still not going to accumulate wealth. A subject that's hardly ever talked about.
Yes.
It's generally assumed that if Ron is very good at mathematics and he's very good at watching the financial markets, then he'll automatically become rich. No, that's not how it works. There is a lot of stuff happening deep down in our psychology. I know people who are graduates, MBA graduates in finance. I've got people who are CFOs, highly qualified professionals. They're not very good at
I don't know.
managing money. They're not very good at keeping money or growing money, because and this shows you the negative correlation between income and wealth. You can make all the income in the world, but it's not, you're not guaranteed to keep that money and to grow that money into financial wealth
Yes.
unless you have the right mindset as well.
So, yes, yes. So Ron, this how can we say that, since you told me about this, experts, this one, savings, investment, and wealth, these three are there. It is connected, but still, how we can exactly differentiate this one? What is savings and investments?
Well, savings is basically money that we park for the short term. Typically, savings is money that we need for the rainy day. Okay, when
Yeah.
there is an emergency happens, you need to be able to have some cash, and it's good to have some cash because if you don't have cash, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to borrow money,
Yes.
or you're going to sell your investments if you have any.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so it's always a good idea to have some savings, and we always say to people, to professionals, before you invest, have at least 6 to 12 months worth of your income in savings.
Okay.
Now, people say, I can't save that much money. Well, go back to the skills problem. You
Yes.
have a skills problem.
Okay.
Okay, so you can always identify if there's a lack of cash flow, there's lack of skills.
Yes. Yes.
Whatever you're doing, whatever you've been qualified to do, whatever your occupation, whatever your job, for some reason, the market does not place enough value on it to pay you enough money for you to be able to meet your basic and lifestyle expenses and be able to save money.
Yes.
So you have a problem.
Okay.
Okay. So saving is money that we put aside for the short term to meet with any emergencies for the rainy day.
Yes.
Investments is money that we are supposed to put for the long term. Why invest? That's the question. Well, the reason we want to invest is because at some point, every single one of us wants to stop working. Okay. There's
Yes.
a number of reasons why we may stop working.
Okay.
We may get sick. We may have an injury or severe disability. We may lose our job. We may have a spouse or aging parents that we need to take care of,
Correct.
or we are simply retiring.
Mm.
So there's a number of things that will happen in our lifetime where the income will stop.
Okay.
And if you have not been investing prior to that, you have no nest egg.
Oh.
And if you have no nest egg, now you are dealing with two problems: emotional devastation, because all of a sudden you become sick, or somebody in your family has become sick, or you have lost your job, or you have been forced into retirement. And now you also have to deal with financial devastation. It's no wonder that a lot of people end up facing a lot of anxiety and depression, or become really angry, or end up taking drugs and alcohol to deal with the pain of dealing with this emotionally tragic event, and then also realizing I don't have any money.
Money.
And
Yes.
this happened. This should be no surprise. If people for 10, 20, 30, 40 years have engaged in severe neglect of their financial future, never prioritizing investments, never prioritizing savings, never prioritizing skills, never evaluating their cash flow,
Yes.
never seeking any help around money, never developing positive beliefs around money, it's only a matter of time that they're going to find themselves financially delinquent.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
But we can't blame anybody. At that point, most people's reaction is to blame somebody. Oh, the bloody government.
Yes.
Oh, this bloody employer. Oh, the COVID happened. So, oh, this happened. But the thing is, COVID should not be something. I mean, I was having this conversation with my father-in-law yesterday, and he said, so many people have lost their job because of COVID. And I could see that he genuinely believes that. And so do millions of other people in the world. But COVID is not an isolated incident. Yes, COVID as a medical crisis is definitely a major crisis. But if you really look back at the history of the world, we are seeing some sort of a crisis happening every 3 to 4 years. Some years we call it SARS, some ways we call it the bird flu, somewhere we call it GFC. And when
Mm.
I said that to my father-in-law, he said, "But this is different, Ron. The COVID is very, very big. It's very different." And I said, "I completely agree. However, 10 years ago, a lot of things started to shift in the world.
Okay.
And a lot of people could see that the shift was happening.
Yes.
And a
Yes.
lot of people unlearned what they had learned and relearned new things to adapt to the way the world is going to be. For example, we went from the information age to the digital and social age.
Correct.
Obviously, with the internet becoming bigger and bigger and social media becoming bigger and bigger, people started to realize that represents some opportunities. People started to see that because of automation and artificial intelligence and outsourcing, corporations becoming leaner. There was going to be more cost cutting, more redundancies. You could see those patterns emerging. You could see, because people were coming out and talking about this as well.
Yes.
But a lot of people were not paying attention, or they were paying attention, but they were too afraid to make the transition. Now, all of a sudden, when then COVID strikes, they
Yes.
find themselves unprepared.
Correct. Correct. Yes.
And the thing is, we can't say, oh, it's COVID, because the thing is, when you get into the ocean and you're on a boat, you can't say, I can only sail as long as the sun is shining, because the moment the storms come in, then I'm going to sink and I can blame the storm. The problem is, the storms are going to come in, and they're going to come in every few years. So the question then becomes, are you the type of sailor who can only sail when the sun's shining? Or are you the type of skilled sailor that can sail no matter what happens?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is a very uncomfortable thought, because it squarely places the responsibility back on the individual. It transfers the responsibility from the medical crisis or the economic crisis or the financial crisis or the politicians or the governments or the employer back onto the individual. And and of course, most people don't want to take that responsibility, because it's a huge responsibility.
It's responsibility. Yes.
But the fact is, whether we take it or not, you can blame anybody. And even if others are to be blamed for your financial predicament, you are still responsible.
Responsible.
You may not be the person to be blamed, but aren't you still responsible for your financial future? Who's going to look after it? Nobody else.
Nobody else.
Right? So when we decide that we're going to place the responsibility of our financial future in somebody else's hands, guess what? We are responsible for making that decision. And that is not a good decision. Whether you think your employer is going to look after you, or your parents are going to look after you, or your children are going to look after you, or the government's going to look after you, you made that choice.
Yes.
And if you made that choice, you took on a risk, right? And that's my message, is to make people realize this, not to make them feel bad, not to make them feel ashamed, not to make them feel guilty, but to wake them up and say, it doesn't matter who you blame. You are still responsible. And it's only going to hurt you. It won't hurt the people you're blaming.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, Ron, one more thing. If we ask, like, financial confidence is required to achieve financial freedom. So, how this can be, like, how we can gain financial confidence first, and then how this can be lead to financial freedom in a short way. I know the time is also going.
That's a great question, Sumesh, and thank you for asking that.
Yes.
Look, most people, I think we could reasonably say most people are not financially confident. Most of our financial decisions are made from a place of fear and loss aversion. We want to avoid loss. We are more motivated to avoid loss than to make a significant gain. That shows that we are not financially confident. Most of us don't know what we can do to make more money. Most of us don't know what we can do to minimize more tax. Most of us don't know what we can do to create more wealth. Most of us don't know what strategies are available. So all of the financial confidence comes from financial literacy.
Yes.
And having literacy around a skill set or to be able to carry out a task does not necessarily mean that you're financially literate. So you have to become financially literate. You have to understand the language of money and wealth. When you have financial confidence, you have a sense that you can determine your income. You have a sense that you can influence your wealth. And that's despite of what's happening in the economy. When you're not financially confident, you feel you're at the mercy of the economy. You feel you're at the mercy of your employer. You feel you're at the mercy of something or someone for your financial future. When you have financial confidence, you realize you are in charge.
Yes.
Okay. For that, you have to build financial skills. Just like we learn how to ride a bicycle or drive a car, or we learn any other skill, we only learn it through continual practice and repetition. It's the same thing with money. People hardly spend any time learning about money and wealth. They spend a lot of time judging money and wealth and money and people with wealth, but they spend hardly any time developing the skills and the understanding. And that's not, again, it's not to blame people, but we also have to understand that our education system doesn't really teach us any of that stuff. But we can't keep blaming them, because I've gone through the same education system. It didn't teach me any of that stuff. So what did I do? I took responsibility. I made the realization that no government's going to look after me. No politician's going to look after me. I cannot rely on any family members. I certainly don't want to rely on my children. I'm not going to be able to rely on my parents.
Absolutely.
I have to do something about it. I've got to take responsibility.
Correct.
So from there on, I became extremely serious about learning everything about money and wealth. Why? Because it affects so many different areas of our life. How we live, what our lifestyle is like, what we do with our time, who we spend time with, uh, the quality of healthcare, the quality of medical care, the ability to contribute. Everything is affected by how much money and wealth you have. So then I kind of made the connection. I must master this skill, because the mastery of this skill enables and mobilizes so many different areas of my life,
Okay. Yes.
right? But again, I don't have something to fall back on other than myself, and that's what I call financial confidence. Financial freedom is when you get to a point where, through the series of good financial decisions that you have made,
Okay.
you've got yourself to a point where you have enough financial wealth to be able to give you the life and lifestyle that you want today
Mm.
and in the future.
And in the future. Mm.
If you can only afford the life and lifestyle that you want today, but you are not certain about the future, you're not financially free.
Great. Mm. Yes.
Okay. So financial confidence comes from financial skills, and financial confidence and the right financial strategies and disciplines then results in financial freedom.
Freedom. Yes.
And it's such an important subject. And when I see all the sea of professionals and executives and people out there in the world, sometimes I think, my God, people don't even know the ABC of this.
Yeah. Okay.
And how can we win a game when we don't understand the rules of the game and
Yes.
we don't understand how to read the scoreboard of the game? We can't. And unfortunately, if you actually look at the money game, if you have an income, you have expenses, and you pay tax, you're in the money game.
Yes.
And if you don't know how to read the scoreboard, meaning you don't understand numbers and you don't understand the rules of money and wealth,
Mhm.
it's a
Yes.
mathematical certainty that you're heading towards financial failure. It's a
Correct.
very, very deep and touching topic, and it's a very disturbing one. And unfortunately, a lot of people are blissfully asleep, no idea where they're heading. And
Mm.
that's exactly the type of change that we're wanting to bring with our message and our programs and courses.
Yes. Yes. Oh, fantastic, Ron. To conclude, the final question to you, because you have told that it is a learnable skill, So, which are all books or methods you will suggest to the audience for starting with? To
Look, I think the first thing is you've got to fix your mindset. And if you allow me to just do a plug-in because the reason I'm writing my books and doing my programs is to
correct.
enable people and mobilize people in this regard.
Yes.
If you don't mind, I would suggest that people get the copy of my book, Impossible to Fail.
Yes.
So that has a lot of general principles. I also have a book called 8 Wealth Habits of Financially Successful
Yes. Yes.
People. And if you're really serious and you're ready to put the time and the effort in to upskill yourself on the skill of money and wealth, then I would suggest you make an inquiry on info@ronmalhotra.com about our future Millionaires Academy.
Yeah. Sure. Yes. Yes. That is upcoming program. I think now some webinars or something is going on now, right?
No, we've got the program's been running for a while, but obviously now we're starting to take it out there in the marketplace, and we have a number of people who have come into the program, successfully been able to identify the gaps that they have, upskill themselves, improve their cash flow, make better investment decisions, so on and so forth, depending on what stage they're in, but also very clearly identify how they need to plan for their financial future, how to set the target for their financial future, and to assess the gap between where they are and where they want to be.
Fantastic, Ron. So, Ron, thank you so much and for your time, because it was really a full power-packed session. And I know you are scheduled in that. You have given me time, and thank you so much for that. And definitely, this is going to be useful for the audience.
No, thank you. And if I may just do a plug-in for you as well. So Sumesh has a fantastic sales model. And I know that sales is one of the high income skills that we actually recommend for people. We actually say to a lot of people, if you have an income problem, you have a skills problem. And one of the best skills that you can ever learn and master that is transferable across every industry is the art and science of selling. And let me tell you, if you think selling is beneath you, you already have a problem, because you have a negative association with sales. No
Yes.
matter how technically proficient I am, no matter what my level of mastery, remember what I said to you. If you're going to influence your income, you have to have the ability to position and promote yourself, which requires selling skills. So if you're somebody who wants to improve your selling skills because you need to fix your income problem, go and see Sumesh, because that's exactly what Sumesh has done. He has created an entire structure and framework and system around enhancing your sales capabilities so you can become a better salesperson, and you can do it in a non-sleazy way, in a non-pushy way, in a way that feels more natural to you. So thank you for doing that, because I know that that creates so much value in the market and economy as well. So thank you, Sumesh, for having me, and really grateful for the opportunity, and lovely to see you today.
Thank you so much, Ron. Thank you so much.